Good evening, you're watching brass-tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The UGC sparked a nationwide debate with its newly notified promotion of equity in higher educational institutions. These were new regulations after days of protests across the country. Today, the Supreme Court has put those new regulations in abeyance. It has effectively stayed the implementation of these new regulations, taking note of the non-inclusive definition of caste-based discrimination and excluding certain categories from protection. The court basically issued a notice to the central government as well as to the UGC. The regulations basically sought to curb discrimination and to foster inclusion, which are being seen as a tool for having further discrimination or even reverse discrimination. So a lot of general category students across the country were protesting over the last few days. In fact, the minister came out a couple of days back and said there is no provision to misuse, but the court seemed absolutely unconvinced. In fact, the court chastised the central government's counsel today, saying, are we now creating a regressive society? Are we going from a casteless society, which is our aim and our aspiration, and are we now regressing in the opposite direction, whereby we are perpetuating further caste discrimination? So let's bring you up to speed with what was a fiery day of arguments in the hearing that happened in the Supreme Court. The court had some very pointed questions to the Attorney General and the counsel representing the UGC, whether India is regressing in its efforts to achieve a casteless society. The Chief Justice was leading this bench, Justice Suryakant. He addressed the constitutional and practical aspects of this regulation. He stated repeatedly that the unity of India must be reflected in our educational institutions. The bench also said that these new regulations are prima facie vague and they are prone to misuse. Asserting that the language used is vague, the Supreme Court has also called for experts to clarify. For example, something called implicit discrimination was a clause that was included in these regulations, and a lot of students and teachers took grave exception to that. The court also observed that such issues may have dangerous impact and further divide society, asking the central government to redraft these norms. The apex court for now has stayed the implementation of these regulations. It's basically kept these norms in abeyance. These new norms cannot be implemented. Let's listen in to some reactions after the court's order today.
देखिए, मैं कहूंगी कि लगातार स्टूडेंट विरोध कर रहे थे और उसमें लगता है उनको भी इनसिक्योरिटी हो रही थी कि शायद उनके साथ लॉ में मिसयूज हो जाएगा। तो मुझे लगता है सरकार फेलियर रही है ये बताने में कि अगर हम SC, ST, OBC को प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हैं तो इट्स नॉट मीन कि हम फॉरवर्ड वर्ग या किसी भी वर्ग के स्टूडेंट के साथ मिसयूज होने देंगे। मुझे लगता है कि सरकार को एक बार फिर से स्टैंडिंग कमेटी में भेजना चाहिए, सरकार को डिस्कस करना चाहिए, दोबारा से इसको बेहतर तरीके से डिफाइन करना चाहिए।
अब ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ऑब्जर्व किया तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर तो मैं कोई कमेंट कर नहीं सकता, लेकिन इसकी बात नहीं। जितनी सरकार की जो नीति आती है, बांटने की नीति आती है, ठगने की नीति आती है, कल्याण कम जुमला ज्यादा होता है।
I want to go for a quick political face-off on this. Susi Ben Shah is spokesperson of the Shiv Sena, and Karan Verma, political analyst, joining us. Ms. Shah, let me start with you because the court had some very, very stinging observations made today during the course of the hearing. It's also put on stay, this new notification by the UGC, the new regulation by the UGC. The court asks, are we regressing what we've achieved in the last 75 years to create a casteless society? These measures, if they are implemented, will regress Indian society. It has said that colleges cannot be seen in isolation, university campuses cannot be seen in isolation. We have all lived together in hostels during growing up years. Are we now regressing back to a society where we are perpetuating caste infirmities and caste discrimination? Please respond to this, ma'am, because the government at the center, the education ministry, the UGC had been receiving a lot of flack in the last few days because of these new notifications.
Very good evening, Zaka and my fellow panelists, and good evening to all the viewers. It's always be a pleasure to be on your show, Zaka. Now, let me begin by saying that at the moment the stay that has been granted by the Supreme Court is a pause. It is an opportunity for the government to refine the definitions, refine the clauses or the definitions where there needs further clarification, and we welcome that. But the entire exercise was done by a committee headed by Digvijay Singh. He himself was the head of the committee who analyzed and then came up with his draft rules. But it was never a view, it was not politically motivated nor ideologically. It was mandated by the Supreme Court. It is mandated by the Constitution. Article 15 and 46 clearly gives the government to take affirmative actions to
No, ma'am, where does the Supreme Court order or affirmative action say that, there is no grievance? No, once again, there is no grievance redressal mechanism for general category students. What is the definition of implicit discrimination? You have representation in these equity committees for SC, ST, OBC, women, persons with disability, but nobody from general category. What happens when a general category person faces what they call reverse discrimination? What is the grievance redressal mechanism? None of this was mentioned in the Supreme Court order.
As far as the equity committee is concerned, let me tell you this. There is a member of, I think 11 or 12 people are to be there. There are 3 senior professors. There is VC. There is member of the civic societies. Yes, there is a specific mention about SC, ST and women to remain present. But that does not mean that the other professors, the other members are also SC and ST. They could be from the general category. But yes, as I said, there has to be refinement. So there is a lot of confusion. Why do we presume that all the civil society, the senior professors, the VC will all be from SC, ST? So therefore, but I'm not running away. We are saying that it needs refinement, but it is not done only by the government. There was a committee, and I think the chairperson was Digvijay Singh.
No, but nowhere is a committee's recommendation binding on the government, ma'am. If you choose not to implement them or certain provisions you don't want to implement, you can always suspend them.
The petition by Rohit Vemula and Tadvi, they had specifically said that there has to be an affirmative action taken. The UGC should rise to the occasion and make rules which are enforceable.
But this has turned out to be counterproductive. Let me get Karan Verma to respond to this. No, ma'am. If it's not counterproductive, why has the Supreme Court put a stay on it? Please tell me.
Stay, further refinement, maybe improve the language in which we are open to it. Let us understand the principle behind it was to stand up for the people who face continuous discrimination. You and me cannot run away from the fact there is discrimination on campus, and therefore there has to be a system.
So let Karan Verma respond to that. There is discrimination on campus. There has to be a grievance redressal mechanism. There is historic discrimination against people from SC, ST or OBC communities. And a campus and education is a great leveler. A campus should be the last place where they should face discrimination. And if they do, then this is the mechanism to resolve that. Karan.
Certainly better than 2012.
Okay. Karan.
Saka, now please, I hope ma'am extends me the same courtesy because I need to bust some lies here. Number one, the intention was wrong. It's not the language that was wrong. There is no general category person who can be a part of the equity committee or the equity squad. It is as explicit as it gets. That's number one. Secondly, when she mentions Rohit Vemula case, the Rohit Vemula case, the petition that was filed was for stronger implementation of UGC 2012 rules. There was no mention of a greater rule system or something else coming up. In fact, the Supreme Court directives, which they hide behind, the government hides behind, not ma'am, I'm saying per se, the government hides behind, the Supreme Court never mentioned about having more stringent laws. It was all about implementation of UGC 2012. And when she mentions committee, who all was a member of the committee, Zaka? It had Ravi Shankar Prasad, it had Sambit Patra, it had Basuri Swaraj, members of the government. Now, don't tell us that this committee, now, Zaka, please, let me complete. Don't tell us that the committee was so empowered that the education minister couldn't do anything about it, the prime minister couldn't do anything about it. And don't tell me that you care so much about the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court said that SC/ST Act is being misused and a preliminary inquiry should be made mandatory. This government overturned the Supreme Court and said that there will be no preliminary inquiry before the FIR, and we've increased the offences.
But Karan, please help redress. Please help redress these things. Yes, the committee was formed basis directions by the Supreme Court. How does one promote equity, inclusion and constitutional values inside campus? How does one strengthen protection, institutional protection inside campus against caste-based bias? How does one ensure that there is mandatory and timely redressal and a mechanism for grievance redressal when it comes to caste bias inside campus? And ultimately, accountability for institutions. If you do not penalize them, there is going to be no accountability. Please answer how these are going to be addressed.
So you just mentioned the word Zaka equity, which is the main word here.
Yes.
How can we have an equity committee when one entire caste doesn't even have a voice?
No, but
It
how
was
do you
doomed for
present
failure
that?
right from the word go. How can you have equity when you assume that one caste per se is the oppressor? When we have umpteen examples of upper caste, so-called upper caste being discriminated against. Brahmins, go back. Did we not see the graffiti on JNU walls? Kill all Brahmins. Brahman teri kabar khudegi. Have we not seen these slogans? If you see a snake and a Brahman, kill a Brahman first. Have we not seen that sort of genocide that happened in Kashmir? So how can you assume per se that one caste is the oppressor? Your entire plan for equity fails that very minute.
You know that there's a larger issue, a larger angst which a lot of general category folks are feeling today politically with the Modi government, that look, they have voted for him time and time again for the last 10 years. They've given him unprecedented mandates, but somehow when it comes to protecting the interests of the general category, they always feel shortchanged. Now, how do you address that? That's a political grievance that they have.
Now, as far as the universities are concerned, you see, the society at large, here we're talking about universities. Now, I would not run away in the universities. There are anti-ragging institutions, right? There are also committees. If you have a grievance, you can always go to the committee and address. So therefore, as far as the general students are concerned, there are institutions at place, but it was observed time and again that historically these communities which have been marginalized, they didn't have a say, and this is a 4-layer committee. There is a committee, there is a helpline, there is further investigation, and no one is going to be criminally booked for this. There is also a clause of ombudsman that unless if you are aggrieved by the order, you can go to an amicus curiae. You could go to that person.
Okay.
He will hear it out, and within 30 days.
Okay, so let Karan respond to that. There are councils,
Right.
there are anti-ragging councils, there are student councils, and of course, the equity committee's decision is not final and binding. There are other appellate mechanisms as well, including this ombudsman. Let Karan,
It was final. You have no recourse.
let Karan respond. Yeah.
Zaka, 2-3 points. First of all, do we really want a stigma to be attached to a student and then he or she should run from pillar to post going to these appellate tribunals? You know, we can't make the process the punishment here.
No, but Karan, that same stigma. No,
honors.
once again, the same stigma. No, once again, the same stigma can be associated with a person from a lower caste also. It is to redress the stigma that the equity committee is being formed in the first place.
So you can't assume that a general category person is the oppressor.
No.
Just on the basis of a complaint, you can't, give this weapon in their hands, and you can't have equity squads roaming
There's no
around
weapon.
where someone doesn't choose the other for a project and they say that, oh, this is a caste slur coming my way.
No, hold on.
You can't grossly, wrongly empower someone like that. That's number one. And secondly, Zaka, let me make my point, please. You mentioned about ragging. Now, that's a valid point. Ragging was rampant throughout the 90s and 2000s. It really needed addressal. Is this so rampant? Ma'am just kept on saying historically, historic. What are the number of complaints we have right now? As per UGC 2023-2024, we have 378 complaints out of 4.2 crore students. Complaints I'm talking, which is 0.00018%. Do you think it's that rampant that you need something as draconian as this?
Okay.
No.
We need to be rational in it. We don't want our campuses to
yeah, 10 seconds. I got to wrap up. Yeah, 10 seconds. I got to wrap up. We've got the next.
Let me tell you this. Number one, not even one student should be wronged. Not even one student on campus should take their lives because of discrimination. Number one. Number two, there is a committee. When a complaint is made, it is up to the committee to look at it, and if they find merit in the case, it's in the POSH also. It's the same thing. When the complaint goes to a POSH committee, they examine the intricacies of the complaint, and then a redressal is given. So therefore, the intent.
Okay, we'll have to leave it at that. But thank you very much to Susiben Shah and to Karan Verma for joining us. Let's see if the government now goes back to the drawing board and asks the UGC to redraft these regulations in a way that it is acceptable to all communities and to all castes. So I want to get an academic perspective on this. I want to go across to Mr. Sukhdev Thorat. He's former chairperson of the UGC. Mr. Thorat, thank you very much for joining us. One of the reasons why the Supreme Court today has stayed these new regulations, it's called the Promotion of Equity in Higher Educational Institutions Regulations 2026, which has been recommended by a parliamentary committee, and then, of course, the notification was brought out by the UGC. The court has basically said, are we regressing as a society? Are we going back the 75 years of movement towards or aspiration towards a casteless society? The court has said that our colleges and our university campuses cannot be treated in isolation. After all, we have all lived together in hostels in our younger days, irrespective of caste, creed, class, etc. The court has some valid questions that it has asked both the UGC and the central government as to why these draft rules, seemingly a lot of people have taken grave offense to it. And the court seems to be siding with them.
Well, I think the point raised by the Supreme Court for staying this 2026 regulation, I don't think it is clear. They have made a general comments which are equally confusing as far as their explanation is concerned. There are obviously limitations in the 2026 regulation vis-a-vis the 2012 regulation. I myself have written an article in Hindustan Time today. It has appeared, and I have pointed out the limitation of this regulation to four limitation. One is it doesn't cover all the higher education institutions in the country. Second is that it doesn't list the forms of discrimination, which is the case of 2012 regulation. And it also have an equity committee where head of the institution itself is chairing. So he sit on both sides of the table, take the decision as well as take a final decision, make the recommendation and take the final decision. So there are limitations, but that limitation doesn't justify the loose comment made by the Supreme Court today. What we need
it's not just a loose comment. The court has stayed. It has put a stay on the implementation of these regulations, and
but they also made the comment that we are going back, that there is a scope for misuse, and
yes.
And then the Constitution talks about casteless society, and there is already, and also they refer to that economically among the scheduled castes there has been a section which is economically better off, and also they say why rigging has not been included. So these are all general comments which they should not have made.
No, but tell me, the grievances of some of the general category students, many of them have been protesting outside the UGC offices, etc., are 3 or 4 broadly. One is fear of misuse or false complaints. They don't have a redressal mechanism if there's a false complaint that's been filed against any of the general category students. Number 2, there is a phrase that is used called implicit discrimination. Now, that's very vague. There is no provision in law which talks about implicit discrimination. 3, they have argued that there's no representation for general category in these committees. No SC, only SC, ST, OBC members are there. There are no general category members. And 3, what happens to polarization within the campus? And that's again the logic of what the Supreme Court was asking today. That doesn't this further accentuate caste biases and caste narratives in the campus, as opposed to what we should be moving towards, which is a casteless society?
Okay, let me take the first question that it will be in division on the campus, and then I go to the argument of false cases. See, the justification for the regulation of 2012 arises from the fact that in 2008 there was a committee set up by the Ministry of Family Planning and Health after the suicide in the All India Institute of Medical Science, and that committee discovered a very systematic pattern of discrimination being faced by scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. And then there were a couple of other suicides. So Kapil Sibal, the then education minister, took a decision to have a regulation in education institution, arguing that the education institution are not immune from the discrimination. The argument also, the academic argument was that a student with a diverse background belonging to different castes, ethnicity, religion, gender, they came on the campus. their socialization happened in the family and the society, and they came with several prejudices.
Okay.
So they came with the prejudices against the scheduled caste because of reservation, scheduled tribe, against gender. So they came with in the campus, and there is already a division. The peer group formation, friendship formation happens in a divisive way.
Okay.
Around,
All right.
Around the
We'll-
common value of equity and fraternity. So that's
We'll see how this plays out, because I think the government is basically, the court has basically given the government and the UGC, I think, about a month's time, a little more than a month's time, to try and come back with better framed regulation to try and, as the court said, move society towards a casteless society. Thank you very much, Mr. Thorat. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us. That's the former UGC chairman.